And Nigel Farage is with us now. Welcome back to the programme. Now, you say Mr. Trump is creating a new world order. What is it other than America first?
America first, but not alone. He laid that out in Davos very clearly earlier in the year, and that's what all countries should do. All countries should put the interests of their own people first, but want to cooperate and trade with other people. It's exactly what he wants to do.
Well, he said that he's not showing much cooperation when it comes to trade, or when it comes to NATO, or when it comes to Mrs. May. That's not a new world order.
Well, I don't
That's
know. He's managed to get
sowing chaos everywhere he goes.
Well, he's managed to get the German car manufacturers to suggest on the back of what he's been saying that maybe tariffs should be abolished completely on cars across the Atlantic. So, actually, direction of travel on that is interesting. On NATO, well, I mean, come on, for goodness sake. 29 members of the club, only a handful paying their way. I think what he said on that is absolutely right.
Just, can you tell me, on this extraordinary NATO press conference that he gave this morning, could you tell me one thing he said that was factually accurate?
Well, you must always take Donald Trump seriously, but not always literally. And that's the way he does things. He does shoot from the hip, but his instincts are strong, and his direction of travel is generally right.
So when he said that America paid for 90% of NATO, that's not true, obviously. He said that he'd got this brand new deal of billions more from the other NATO members. That's not true. All they did was reinforce the deal that they made in 2014. On every fundamental thing he told us, it wasn't true.
He was a bit soft, I agree with you. He could have been harder this morning, because it looks like...
Soft or hard? What he told us was untrue.
Well, what is true...
There is no more money than what was agreed in Wales 4 years ago.
What is true is that Germany is paying 1.2% of their GDP towards NATO, and they expect full American protection, and that can't continue. And how disappointing that Theresa May, who had the opportunity yesterday to be the broker, the bridge, if you like, between America and the rest of Europe, didn't take the opportunity.
Is there a new world order being created, or is it just America first?
Well, I think some people at first thought that Donald Trump was an aberration. I now think one has to take very seriously the possibility of 2 terms. So, first of all, that's another 6 years of this. And 8 years altogether of a particular United States policy is something that we really do need to factor in. It is a world order, although I don't yet know what it is, because he is using tariffs aggressively. He is trying to make some sort of deal, goodness knows what it is, with North Korea. He does want to make some sort of deal, goodness knows what it is, with Putin.
Who he meets in Helsinki, I think it's Monday.
And he's showing an extraordinary amount of hostility to the concept of the European Union. And whereas, on the whole, diplomacy is about people going to other countries and being insincere in order to not discomfort their hosts, this is not his approach at all. He's come here and spoken from the hip and, blown Theresa May's proposal for Brexit out of the water. So quite a lot of that is new, and quite a lot of that has to do with the world.
Have you been winding him up on Brexit?
We've had the odd chat about it. And it's not just him, by the way.
No.
You speak to Wilbur Ross or John Bolton or any of those senior figures.
I was going to say, you've also been winding up Team Trump, haven't you?
Well, I like to have a chat with them.
Your hand was all over that article in tomorrow's
Sun. I think on balance they're probably more Eurosceptic than I am, Andrew. I mean, they see the European Union as the embodiment of globalism. They believe in nation-states running themselves, cooperating with each other, and so do I.
So, how do you handle a US president who has his Brexit policy determined by Nigel Farage and the British government has to deal with them? How do you do that?
I know. Well, you've got to see past the kind of belligerence and the ignorance. I mean, Nigel is actually charming compared to Trump. He's not got an ounce of charm in him. But you have to respect the office that he holds. And I think all of these protests this week are going to add grist to his mill. His whole raison d'etre is, look, I'm America first, and look what I put up with. I have to put up with this because I put America first. But he's not a deal maker, is he? He's a deal breaker. He should take some lessons from that guy from Ethiopia. He's not reached a deal. He's broken a lot of deals so far. He hasn't brokered one.
So he is rude to Chancellor Merkel, one of America's most important.
Well, it's about time somebody was, I'd have thought.
And
well, you've been doing it for years.
How well he is going to get on with President Putin. Has he ever met a strong man he doesn't like?
Well, of course, strong people will always have a certain attraction to other strong people, but...
Even authoritarian,
he
undemocratic strong men.
He certainly is getting on well with the new Italian government. That's a very interesting development. I think we all need to think about that. This isn't just Brexit and Trump. Italy shows you there is a trend. The whole game is changing.
But except the new Italian Prime Minister came out today and said, we didn't agree to pay any more for NATO at all. We don't know what he's talking about. How is that getting on?
Well, they may have to watch themselves in the future, is all I can say. I mean, you know, Obama made all these veiled threats and never acted upon it. I was slightly surprised by the end of that NATO summit that Trump wasn't a bit stronger. He's sort of kind of claiming a victory where perhaps one wasn't there. But listen, the NATO issue will come back again. And of course, this is all against the backdrop of a European Union that wants to create its own army. With Mr Juncker encouraging people just to pay 1% of their GDP. So this one will run and run. What he's done tonight, Andrew, I think is very significant. I mean, there they all were, the cabinet, at Blenheim Palace, having a grand dinner. And as the coffee and petit fours have been served, somebody would have whispered in Mrs May's ear, and we've got a bit of trouble with the Murdoch press in the morning.
Nigel Farage has got to. What they're saying on this. The difficulty I find in this is someone who kind of analyses and follows policy. I'm not sure there is any policy in this. It's all transactional. Everything Mr Trump sees is a transaction. There's not a new policy framework being created here. There's not a new world order, as Nigel says. It's, all right, I'm going to get a better deal on NATO out of you. I'm going to get a better deal on trade out of you. There's no overarching theme to this. I'm just going to get better. That's it.
Well, America First continues to be the theme. But, I mean, in the case of what he said on Brexit, of course, you know, America First would dictate that he would do a deal with the United Kingdom, a bilateral trade deal. And what he's saying, I think with a fair amount of sadness, is that the proposals that were cleared by the Cabinet on Friday are going to make that impossible. I mean, that is a very strong statement.
It is, but hold on. When President Obama said that we'd go to the back of the queue, you were outraged. How dare an American president interfere in our... You know, this time you're not outraged. You're helping him interfere.
Obama set the precedent. American leaders into it. Right. Well, I tell you what it does do. It's going to make Tory backbenchers think very hard over the weekend, and there's going to be a couple of big votes coming up in Parliament next week. And I think what Trump is saying actually is chiming with the way Middle England are feeling this week. I've never known, you know, small C Conservative rural types be as angry with the Conservative government as they are. And I would just suggest that maybe people listen to what Trump has said today, particularly Tory backbenchers, many of whom will lose their jobs if they carry on with that checkers accord.
The letters page of the Telegraph has smouldered all week.
It has.
And then the Daily Mail caught up in the same theme today by doing 2 pages. You probably wrote half of them as well while you were writing his article in The Sun with both hands. Where do we go with this? Because it is perfectly possible, if, as Michael was saying, if the US economy continues to go the way it's going now, he could be favourite. He would be favourite, I think, to win a second term. Yes. That's another 6 years from today.
I actually thought he might not want a second term originally.
So did
he
I,
might just wanted it for
does.
4 years. He's done it. He's reached a position. Now I think Michael's right. I think he does want a second term, and I think it's looking increasingly like he's going to win it. Although there was an interesting thing in Time magazine this week where they surveyed the American people on the most popular president, and Obama came top, 44%, then Clinton, then Reagan, and then Trump on 17%. Now, it's a survey by Time magazine. Whether, you know, we're thinking that it's in the bag for the next election...
No, I don't think it's in the bag.
But what's really interesting is that his approval rating amongst Republican voters is higher at this stage than Ronald Reagan's was during his first term. So the base behind Trump is very, very solid.
But here's the problem. Any potential British government, either Labour or Conservative, is not going to take your advice, rightly or wrongly, on how to handle Mr. Trump. And given his attitude to NATO, to his allies, to Mrs. May, to trade wars, to slapping tariffs on things he doesn't like, the special relationship is just going to erode. At a time when we're leaving the European Union, and we were told by people like you that the special relationship
I take the opposite view.
was going to be so important once we left.
I take the opposite view. A good British leader would have emerged from that NATO summit, as I've said already, as the bridge between America and the rest of Europe. I do think, certainly in terms of financial services, there are considerable barriers between trade from New York and London. Much we can do there. And remember, this president, he is half British. All of that cabinet,
well, a quarter.
All of that cabinet, well, take it as you wish, but he is a bit Scottish, you know. But all of that cabinet want to have close relations with the UK. They see us as their natural partner in the world. And when we get a new Prime Minister, hopefully before too long, I'm praying that we get one that recognises there's a lot we can do.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it there. Only another couple of days to go. So obviously nothing's going to happen. Nigel Farage, thank you.
Big Man Tyrone here. Make sure to subscribe to the wicked awesome Robin Hood UKIP YouTube website. He exposes the leftist crops on the British Brainwashing Corporation. Nice.